one. Well, it's my distinct pleasure today to have in conversation Lori Sokol, who's the Executive Director and Editor-in-Chief of Women's eNews. Lori, thanks so much for being here. And I do want to say, a member of the ERA Coalition, we're delighted to have you as a part of our group working towards the Equal Rights Amendment.
Oh, thank you, Carol. It's a pleasure to be here. And of course, we should all be members of supporting the ERA and finally get that amendment passed so that the United States can truly have show that there is equality of gender in the Constitution.
Right, which is why we're working for the 50-state strategy. All 50 states should support equality for women, not just now that we have miraculously, solidly the 38th state, we can breathe a sigh of relief. Congress has passed it, so we are definitely on the track. We just have a little bit of work to do about that time limit. We'll get that resolved very shortly as well. Women's eNews, founded by a very dear late friend of mine, Rita Hendling Jensen. Lori has taken over magnificently for her in this, and talk with us a little bit about the mission. I would say if you don't already subscribe, you must subscribe to Women's eNews. You'll need to read it every single day. Lori?
Well, thank you, Carol, for that introduction. And yes, so Women's eNews, you can visit us at womensenews.org. It's free to subscribe. So yes, there's no reason to not to. When I took over in July of 2016, of course, seemed like another world back then. We're talking about, a little over 4 years ago. One of the first things I did was replace our board because it was only white people. And that is not representative of our country. In fact, Women's eNews is global, so even more so, it's not representative of the world, right? And it was clear we were not having enough voices from people of color getting their voices out and having their stories told. And as we know, providing a platform for that is extremely important. It's crucial because we all benefit, right, from understanding the lived experiences of people who do not live our experiences. We all benefit. So it was replaced by a board of women of color, every single one of them. And since then, we've been including more content, and it's been my personal mission to include more content written by women of color, right, reporting on women of color, because there's no one better to do that, right, than those who experience what it's like to be a woman of color in this country or other countries. Also the LGBT community.
Sure.
We used to only, before I took over, provide content on that community during the month of June, which is Pride Month. It's ridiculous, right? So we have increased dramatically from the beginning the amount of coverage of people in the LGBT community, written by those who are in the community. And now I'm very pleased to announce that we're starting a new journalism series to cover women who are members of the disabilities community, written by women who are in the disabilities community.
Right. And supported by Lorene Arbus, who's been such a supporter of so much work done in the women's movement, all of the organizations. And I do want to point out that Marcy Sims is a big supporter, a friend of the coalition, and supported the series that you did on the Equal Rights Amendment and women of color, to sort of dispel the fact that the ERA was only for white women. A whole series of articles that highlighted why it really is for women of color. That was terrific. And in your latest issue, I see the COVID coverage that you've done, once again pointing out the unbalanced harm that's being done to communities of color by COVID.
Well, yes, and yes, I do want to also say about the Marcy Sims Excellence in Journalism program. This is our 5th consecutive year. You're going to be seeing a lot of more content coming out this year as well. Actually, I think it's the 6th, so I take that back.
Yeah. I mean, she does marvelous work also in the women's community.
Oh, absolutely. So what has happened is, as we have seen, the pandemic has put on stage what we already knew to be true, but has made it even more relevant and more expansive, in that people who are marginalized in our society, particularly in our country, are most prominently affected by any kind of, whether it be the recession, whether it be by a pandemic, and now we're facing both, right? And
Right, right.
the healthcare system, we do not have healthcare system that everyone can, benefit from. So people of color are even more impacted by that because they tend to be those who are often unpaid workers, right? And also those who are there on the front lines, particularly women of color. They are primarily involved as in the health field, right? As
Right.
healthcare aides, as
And
nurses.
personal care, personal aid, and health, right, where they are essential first line
Yes.
workers, and we see this. But I think the rate, I mean, by the way, you should subscribe now and read this article, because what Lori's reporters are saying is that, Blacks are at a double rate of harm, of death, of the disease, which is really extraordinary. I want to talk a little bit about your book too. So Lori has a book out called She Is Me, How Women Will Save the World. And I do want to say how pleased I am to be one of the women interviewed here, but also for the ERA Coalition, the chair of our Fund for Women's Equality, one of our boards, Mona Sinha, and our board members, Lauren Embry, Suzanne Lerner, Gloria Steinem, and Jamia Wilson, who's on our advisory board. Thank you so much, Lori, for highlighting the work of the women of the ERA Coalition, and some other women who are doing terrific work. Talk to us about the way you chose the women and their contributions to, how we're saving the world. I'll take on that title. Yes, that's my goal. I have a small part in it.
Not so small, not so small. And all of the women, including yourself, rather than thanking me, I thank you and them for all of the work they are doing, and the 23 or 24 other women, 30 in total, that I have interviewed for this book. And how did I select them? Well, each one of them I had to know personally. Okay.
Right.
I think you and I have known each other for 20 years.
For a long time. And I want you to know, you may have been the last person in my house before COVID started when we talked about the book during the interview. Nobody's been in since then. So.
Okay. Well, each woman in her own way, and in some very similar ways, are devoting their work and their lives to human rights and gender equality, right? Whether it be trying to get the Equal Rights Amendment passed in the United States, ratified in the United States, whether it be Lima Bowie, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, who led an uprising in Liberia, saving the lives of tens of thousands of people, mostly children, whether it be Edna Ismail, who built a hospital in her name in Somaliland, right? To ensure that women of color, they have the highest Black maternal death rate in the world, to put a stop to that. Each one representing a variety of women from all over the world. What they do all have in common are a couple of very, very important things. And this is why I believe women will save the world. And they already are, because, it was actually foreshadowing. I finished the book in February, a month later, the coronavirus takes hold. And now if we look at the countries where women are leaders, they have been the ones to actually save their country, save the lives of citizens, minimize the impact of the pandemic on their citizens and on their country's economies, right? If we look at the governors of the states in the United States, they are responsible for the lowest impact of virus cases and deaths. So even before this happened, this was clear. So what is it about women like you and all of these women, and every woman, right? Because the title is She Is Me. All of those qualities and traits that used to and still are looked at as weak and soft because they're feminine, right? Warmth, compassion, empathy, right? Introspection, sensitivity, right? Have been looked at as weak but what we're seeing is they're
They
not.
used to be insults, right?
Insults, right? The worst thing you
Right,
could say is cry. Oh, to a man, you cry like a girl.
right,
Actually, it's the opposite. What we're seeing is these traits are the qualities that are saving the world, saving lives, saving economies, saving countries before and now during the pandemic. Now, it's not that females are born with these traits and males are not. We're all born with the capacity to empathize, to be sensitive, right? To have compassion. But what's the first question we ask someone when they've had a child? What's the first question? Is it a girl or a boy? And that is the starting point, after which all of cultures and societies' stereotypes,
right,
right, are
right,
placed on that child. So boys are not allowed to cry, right?
right.
Boys are not allowed to show compassion or empathy because they're acting like a girl. So it's not that males don't possess this, but through cultural learning, they are told not to display them. And it's not healthy for, it's not good for anyone. It's not healthy for the men.
Right,
Why the men die earlier due to heart attack and stroke? The amount of stress. I mean, if
right.
imagine having a normal human emotion like crying. And
Sure. So you found in these women the current theme of those traits, and but putting them to good use, saving, and that those traits will save the world we have before us now.
well, they're already saving, saving families, right? By teaching
Right,
their children the importance, primarily girls though. Now, moms and dads have to also, and this is a great opportunity, they have to show their kids, males, sons and daughters, the importance of displaying these qualities. And the pandemic actually provides an excellent opportunity to do so because both parents are home now. They're
right,
home pretty much full time. So how about the dads getting more involved in childcare, bathing their babies more? We are
right.
finding that this is how
You know,
children get the sense of what it's like to
I
be a male, a nurturing
exactly
male in this society. We need more nurturing men.
right.
Absolutely.
Well, it sounds like you agree with Gloria Steinem on that point, who is also who is profiled in this book. And I do want to show the cover if I can. She Is Me, How Women Will Save the World. I've given it to all of my grandchildren, the boy included, who's a big feminist, still trying to get over Hillary, not being president of the United States, as so many of us are. But at any rate, do want to say to Lori Sokol, thank you so much. Women's eNews, subscribe. She Is Me. Get the book. And Lori, thanks so much for spending a few minutes with us today. I hope we can do this again soon.
Oh, I would love to, Carol. Thank you. And just to say that also the book's website is sheismebook.com, where you could learn more about these absolutely awesome and inspiring women.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, Lori.
Thank you, Carol.